2020 may have been the year of the apocalypse, but it was a renaissance for gaming. More people played more games, and it's time to celebrate some of the good to come out of the year that really belonged in a dystopian novel. Welcome to Teaching Gamers' Top 10 Games of 2020. Welcome, you brilliant gamers and learners, to Teaching Gamers, where we talk about the games that taught us and how we can teach with those games. My name is Mallory Kesson. I'm a gamer, teacher, and EdTech coach with a passion for bringing gaming and learning together. Today's Top 10 looks at games that were released in 2020 that could have an awesome impact on learning. This list is based on the quality of games, quality of learning, and the impact it could have in classrooms anywhere. If you enjoy what we're doing here, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, or hit the bell to receive notifications for when we post new content. Let's get started. Number 10. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. While the Assassin's Creed franchise has had its ups and downs across their entries in terms of player reception, the series has definitely been making a comeback with their latest entries like Origins, Odyssey, and now Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Valhalla sees the Order of Assassins tackle both the Viking days, fighting for dominance in England, and Norse mythology and its influence as well. Assassin's Creed Valhalla follows Eivor, a Viking who becomes caught up in the crossfire between assassins and Templars. Eivor leads their clan in Viking expansion across Europe and into Anglo-Saxon England, fighting well-known kingdoms and clans from England's bloody history. If seeing the land of Vikings isn't enough, Valhalla also dives into Norse mythology with the likes of Odin, Thor, Loki, Fenrir, and more debuting in the game. The Assassin's Creed team at Ubisoft has a history of doing their research when it comes to building these ancient worlds. Not only have they once again done their research and beautifully recreated sections of the world, but the release of educational tours from them, like the ones of ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, bode well for a potential tour of Viking-era England. Whether looking for historical accuracies and inaccuracies, or exploring Norse mythology, Assassin's Creed Valhalla lets teachers expand into this new territory, just like the Vikings of long ago. Number 9. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII may be one of the most beloved video games of all time. So when Final Fantasy VII Remake released in all of its updated graphics glory, it wasn't a surprise that gamers flocked to it to see the changes. Final Fantasy Remake once again follows Cloud, Aerith, and a cast of other unique characters as the eco-terrorist group Avalanche fights back against the mega-corporation Shinra to save the planet from extreme resource farming. As the overall conflict rages on, they also have to contend with the enigmatic and intimidating Sephiroth and his own agenda. Classes could draw on the corporation versus environmentalist conflict as a basis for drawing comparisons to similar situations in real life. And in true JRPG fashion, there is so much math. Players are constantly comparing numbers against the odds, calculating risk and probability, and making quick judgments based on it. For literature classes, Final Fantasy VII Remake also presents the beginning of a story that has truly helped shape the gaming community. Making the most of the technology available now, Final Fantasy VII Remake is visually stunning, and in its first installment has already begun telling a narrative full of plot twists and character growth. However, those same beautiful graphics and massive world and story mean that it is rather difficult to run in a class, and we don't know yet when the next installment of the story will be released. Number 8. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is the sequel to the much-beloved game Ori and the Blind Forest. Picking up where the last game left off, Ori and the Will of the Wisps follows Ori, their forest friends, and a baby owl named Ku. When Ori and Ku become separated, Ori sets off on a journey to find their lost friend, once again venturing into a dreamlike forest that has lost its balance. As Ori works to restore order to the forest, science teachers could draw on the moving story to discuss the delicate balance of ecosystems in the real world, and teach about the importance of each piece in an ecosystem. The game could also be used cross-curricularly with language arts, as the game makes beautiful use of conflict and parallel structure to weave this fairy tale. Mechanically, Ori is a game that requires precise timing and movement and plenty of times that players may fail and have to retry. Fear of failure is not an issue here though, because players want to reach that next area, defeat the next boss, and help Ori save the forest and their friends. Even for students who are normally frustrated, Ori can provide a magical dreamscape as the backdrop for students to practice perseverance and see its rewards. Number 7. Persona 5 Royal. If this was a top 10 list of my favorite games of the year, Persona 5 Royal would be number 1 easily. The original Persona 5 is my favorite video game of all time. So when Royal released, with more content and better updates on an already great game, I was happier than a teacher on summer break. Persona 5 Royal focuses on the story of a group of high school students in Tokyo who discover they have supernatural abilities and are determined to use them to fight corruption, protect the weak, and steal the hearts of wicked adults in style. Aside from the obvious that there are in-game moments when you are actually solving crossword puzzles and answering questions from teachers, Persona 5 Royal offers a number of ways that players can learn from the game. The game is filled with references to psychology, classical literature, opera, mythology and folklore, history, government, and more. On a deeper level as well, Persona 5 Royal delivers a powerful message about perseverance, friendship, and fighting injustice. The new editions of the game also dive into thought-provoking questions of what is best for society and who gets to decide such a thing. Persona 5 Royal is a massive PlayStation game with a massive amount of learning that's possible but not as easily accessible as some of our other entries. With the arrival of Persona 4 Golden on PC last year, it may be likely that we could one day see Persona 5 Royal on PC and in classrooms as well. Number 6. Tell Me Why. I'm a huge fan of episodic narrative games, and a huge fan of Don't Nod after their work with Life is Strange and Life is Strange 2. Don't Nod has established a reputation for intriguing storylines, and Tell Me Why not only continues that legacy, but establishes a new one for pushing for equality in games. Tell Me Why is the first major video game to feature a playable transgender protagonist, with its debut of Tyler Ronan. Tyler and his twin sister Allison return to their childhood home to confront the ghosts of their past. The twins soon discover that they can see fragments of memories and use the ability to discover the truth behind their mother's actions and the secrets their small Alaskan town wants to keep buried. Winner of the Game Awards Game for Impact, Tell Me Why isn't afraid to dig into a variety of issues that students could learn from. On the scientific side, both Tyler and Allison talk about issues with protecting the Alaskan wildlife and get involved in debates on what is best for the town and its environment. In addition, whether players can relate to him or learn from him, Tyler's Homecoming offers plenty of opportunity to talk about his experiences and compare them to real-life ones. Players frequently have to choose which perspective to agree with based on the evidence around them and their own conclusions. These choices can have an impact on the story, and their consequences can completely change the course of the game, requiring players to weigh their options and make choices that they might have to defend later. Tell Me Why also asks players to build their empathy for each of the characters as you see their struggles. Whether drawn into the mystery, the Alaskan backdrop, or the characters' experiences, players can find plenty to learn from, even from Episode 1. Number 5. Hades. Escape from the pits of Tartarus as Zagreus, son of Hades, in the aptly named Hades by Supergiant Games. Players fight back some of the most infamous underworld denizens in this roguelike game as they uncover the story and fight against Hades himself to prove his son's strength. Unlike some roguelike games that only want to see players fail and feel that punishment, Hades encourages trying, failing, and trying again to escape the pits of Tartarus. With each failure, players learn more about Zagreus' various family bonds, and each character's motivation. The interwoven narrative encourages failure, and cheers for player success in a way that pushes players to keep fighting no matter how many escape attempts it takes. Hades renews the way players look at Greek mythology, and it is a goldmine for looking at how mythology once again informs and shapes modern media. Its unique art style and motivating soundtrack are bonuses on top of an already great game. Use it as a coming-of-age story, use it as a comparison to the mythology that inspired it, use it to show the value in trying and failing. However it is used for learning, Hades provides plenty of inspiration in this newest iteration of Greek mythology. Number 4. Coffee Talk. Not all games are loud and bombastic, and not all lessons need to be either. Coffee Talk's straightforward premise has players focus on solving people's and magical creatures' problems just by listening and serving a good cup of coffee. Set in a fantasy version of Seattle, players run the Coffee Talk shop and listen in as various customers from vampires to elves to aliens discuss their problems. In addition to learning from the customers, the player learns new drink recipes and fun facts, not only about the drinks, but the cultures they come from. Coffee Talk's gameplay is simple, but the conversations characters have are as rich as a dark brewed coffee. Exploring questions of happiness, life purpose, family expectations, and more, Coffee Talk handles each issue gracefully and gives players a chance to reflect on their own lives as they learn more about the story of each patron. In classes, students could play Coffee Talk and write their own stories of the next patron who would walk in, draw on the rich setting to create a complimentary story or neighbor to the coffee shop, or write personal stories about what they would discuss if they walked into the shop and spoke with a barista. While some of the conversations in the coffee shop are a bit mature for younger learners, the honesty and calm that Coffee Talk brings to each storyline opens each topic for discussion, and can allow players to see parallels with their own lives. Besides, it'll bring a smile to your face with every drink recipe you uncover. Number 3, Spiritfarer. Self-described as a cozy management game about dying, Spiritfarer follows Stella as she cares for a variety of spirits and ultimately fulfills their wishes and helps them pass on to the afterlife. Along the way, Stella and her cat Daffodil travel across the seas, upgrading their ferry and using their resources and lessons from the spirits to explore further reaches and help more people. Spiritfarer's learning moments may not be in the form of bits of trivia and hard facts, but the game is filled with life lessons and social-emotional ones, ranging from expressing healthy boundaries to living life to its fullest to appreciating the small moments. Spiritfarer not only tackles incredibly difficult emotions and a sensitive subject matter, but does so with the warmth of a hug and the sense that everything will be alright. Spiritfarer is an incredibly emotional experience, as players use the context clues provided to infer what happened in each spirit's life, gain empathy for those they meet, and ultimately learn from each one about life and saying goodbye. Every character has such a different story that any player can find someone to connect with in their own experiences. Excellent for its narrative, art style, mindfulness, and gentle guidance through dying and losing someone, Spiritfarer tells a moving story with characters that players easily love and struggle to say goodbye to. Number 2, The Last of Us Part 2. When The Last of Us first hit the scene, the community praised it for changing the landscape of stories in games and what was possible with them. Somehow, some way, Naughty Dog outdid themselves and delivered on that once again. The Last of Us Part 2 is easily one of, if not the, most powerful story of revenge, survival, family, and forgiveness in all of gaming. Picking up years after the first installment, the game follows Joel and Ellie after they've acclimated to life in a new settlement. Shortly into the game, Ellie experiences a devastating trauma, and the game then follows her as she fights for revenge and answers. While violent and not for the faint of heart, The Last of Us Part 2 is full of quiet moments, character growth, and powerful reflections on the story's overall motifs. Naughty Dog also gives players the opportunity to experience the narrative from different perspectives, and at different points in time, building up empathy for each character you encounter. This is the kind of game that I wish I could play with a literature class, to explore the narrative, player choices, each character arc, and more. The game is a wealth of information on telling a story that can deeply impact players and how to create a story that can be as powerful as any classic novel. So many details were built with love and care into the game that a player could spend endless hours analyzing symbols, parallels, themes, and more. Comparing archetypes and the story of The Last of Us Part 2 with classic literature would be absolutely fascinating and provide plenty of chances for players to learn about storytelling and walk away with reflections on themselves as well. Before we announce the game that's top of its class, we have 2 honorable mentions. Dreams. The options are endless in this game that is more like an entry into game design, but its exclusivity to PS4 and PS5 and the range and quality of content makes it questionable for classes. It's an awesome creation tool with brilliant ideas behind it, and time will tell how well it takes off. Ghosts of Tsushima. This is a really beautiful look into a game inspired by samurai history and Japanese culture. It's absolutely gorgeous, and also absolutely bloody and can be pretty difficult to run in classrooms, but definitely worth a look if you're fascinated by the world of samurai. Top of the class, Animal Crossing: New Horizons. Anyone who existed in 2020 knows how unexpected and stressful the year was, and it was absolutely true for students and teachers who had to completely redefine their classwork with remote learning, hybrid learning, distance learning, and the uncertainty of changing game plans at any moment. It was in the middle of March 2020's emergency learning that Animal Crossing: New Horizons released on Nintendo Switch. From day one, New Horizons opened an entire island to players, allowing each player the chance to befriend neighbors, collect bugs and fish, and create their own bit of paradise, whatever that might look like. On the surface, players get to learn about various bugs, fish, paintings, and dinosaurs through Blather's museum. The fun facts and tidbits, and the excitement in seeing all of your hard work come to fruition pushes players to try new things, learn more, and see just how much they can create. Deeper than just factual knowledge, though, Animal Crossing: New Horizons is also an exercise in patience for players, since the game runs in real time, encouraging players to take breaks each day and see their hard work come to life over a course of time. Animal Crossing: New Horizons was a much-needed boon for mental health and creativity early in the pandemic. Most important of all, it became a way for friends and family to stay connected in a time when everyone had to be apart. There were even stories of teachers recreating their classrooms and welcoming students to visit the island classroom for study groups and exams. It highlighted the importance of connecting with those around us, whether near or far. And it's a lesson that people are still learning and embracing almost a year after the game's release. Patience, creativity, connection, and facts about dinosaurs have all built Animal Crossing: New Horizons to be our #1 game of 2020. Thanks so much for tuning in to Teaching Gamers' Top 10 Games of 2020. Was there another 2020 game that you think should have been on there? Leave a comment below with your thoughts, as well as any suggestions for top 10s or games we should cover for learning. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.